So, subject of particularly which financial services on that. That's an interesting also it's getting out of that. Also, well, to help stimulate the conversation as well. But in the long I'm keen to hear this is not through sort of finance elements, key opportunities, key activity for the first half of the year. So I will just spend 5 minutes or so doing that now. Maybe wants to start. I'm sure most people in the room will know there's 6 core elements to the financial and professional services sector on the island. Here on the screen, I'm pleased to say that all of them obviously in growth in one way or another, and they continue to be sort of the economy, roughly half of our GDP, delivered by roughly a quarter of the private sector workforce. So at the moment we've got 9,500 people employed within financial services, and is growing. If you've been here all day, you've seen this diagram a few times already. The shape of the economic strategy moving forward, and financial services is there, right in the middle, because we remain the core moving forward. Strategy, and so while we're going to maintain it, financial services, but we also have a place to support the new areas of the economy being at the top there. So financial services nexus to more. On the right hand side there, we've got some stats about job growth in the last few years. As I said, we are growing. Last year, 300 new roles in the financial services. Again, that's something which is very welcome and great to see. And we're hoping to have that something well in excess of 9.5 thousand. And now take the opportunity to touch on a few of our work projects that we've been working on. According to the first one now, employee benefits. One aspect of working within financial services is that successfully to really catch below the radar. We don't do it in it. We shout that out. We have on the island now a world-class, world-leading pension sector. In certain types of international pensions, 2/3 of those that are written throughout the world are actually written here in the island. And on the back of that, and working with their group, that group of stakeholders, we've created an employee benefits cluster. This is a group of businesses, 20 scouts who come together, working together to promote the fact they are for multiplicity of services that corporate need in employee benefits. That's all the pensions, life insurance, group protection payments, and anything associated with that. And that has we've launched that this year. That's been a great success so far in terms of promoting it. Launching on the island now, they're creating a International Employee Benefits Association membership group on the island, and we're looking for good things out of that this year. And I think the number and the scope of the businesses that are involved in that project really a testament to the quality of the offer that we have in that space. Those of you who heard the minister's comments earlier on in the strategy session, he mentioned the InsurTech program and the innovation challenge. The InsurTech accelerator, that first phase of that concluded in January this year. That was a project centered around fintech opportunities in the insurance sector. Insurance is the largest component of the Irish economy, and that was designed to bring new businesses, new solutions to the island to deal with problems or to provide new opportunities for our insurance sector. That was a success. We won't be around that program in conjunction with our stakeholder partners in the insurance sector. We have 2 businesses who are moving, and one moved, another moving to the island of Man. There's multiple proof of concepts being done life sector. And at the moment we have contracts confirmed on that, and I think that's likely to see change. Very positive. We're going to be running another SureTech project probably early in the new year. So, I'm on that talk about that shortly. FinTech Innovation Challenge, that's mentioned earlier today by our digital colleagues. By Mr. That was our colleagues at the regulator. A wide range of challenge and in a variety of areas. That went very well. We saw 14 contenders into the RMM present their solutions. We will be launching the second challenge then shortly. One of the core activities of Finance RMM is promotion. We've got three campaigns. One that's active and two about to launch. Employee benefits I've already mentioned. We've got our life insurance industry has got an opportunity to a relatively time-bound opportunity to market to the UK, particularly kind of insurance bond, and also supporting a 6-month jurisdictional awareness campaign. Successfully a couple of years ago, really trying to highlight to marketing the fact that the IOM is a world-class international financial services really reinforces what we already have. Also got some of the international events. The IOM is regulatory. We continue to support our colleagues in the Cabinet Office and the regulator colleagues on a range of matters, including AML CFT, working with industry on preparation of money market, probably, and also something that we've been doing fair bit recently, looking at the future of the tax landscape, particularly the OECD's proposals around Pillar 2. So that's the minimum tax rate, one of the largest global corporates, and how that impacts our demand, how we can work with businesses and make the best of that, which hopefully will be a net positive. On the right, the fund management. We've done that. That's been perhaps again under the radar. So it's very experienced companies working in fund management, types and styles. We've got a variety of fund products, and we've actually had one of the most significant new funds established on the RMM recently in the last few weeks. One of the largest we've seen for a long time. That's a nice bit of positivity in that industry, and I think it's a sign of growth there. Finally, on this slide, events. Working with industry partners, we have a comprehensive event program in the UK and internationally. We've sponsored multiple webinars and 9 physical and further 6 planned for the rest of the year, including Israel, Dubai, UK, here in the Isle and South Africa. South Africa is a very interesting market, very interesting in multiple reasons. But we were invited by an industry to join them a few years ago to look at promotion in South Africa on that something known as the Indaba. That's been very successful in terms of engagement both in South Africa, but also engagement with businesses with the nexus. South Africa here in the Isle of Man. Rolf Oldendorp from Turnstones here in the audience. He's one of the driving forces behind the Indaba, and that's a great example of industry and government working together in unison to promote the Isle of Man. That's a long may that continue. This is my final slide. On here we've got we often talk about the maturity of the sector and the size of the sector, and then sustain, protect, maintain, and grow what we have. The financial services licenses are fairly rare. We've had a new Class A license recently, and a very significant transaction services business. We have ongoing work at the moment with actually several businesses looking to the RMM for potential solutions to issues they have, particularly with servicing the UK market. And we're having discussions with a range of ranging from wealth management businesses to life insurance companies who are not currently present. They are now looking to potentially move here. Great. New two facts about jobs that I mentioned earlier. We see job growth in our sector. The 64 is new jobs, new roles created and placed on the island, which is great to see that principally in the banking sector. Right. The number of vacancies, that's another key metric of ours. I think probably as long as most of us can remember, actually filling job vacancies on the island is difficult. We work closely with businesses, with trade bodies, associations, KDAR, UTM and others to work on supporting that. We have, in fact, we're going to be launching a marketing campaign next month, particularly around a subset in financial services and financial services administrators and also compliance professionals to hopefully bring more of those to the Isle of Man. We have a goal of reducing by 50% or working to reduce by 50% on vacancies in our area within 3 years. And I'm pleased to say that we've already had a part of that reduction in job vacancy. That's a positive. I probably said it already longer than I wanted to. We'll be the very friends of my team here in the room today. We'll be very happy to take any particular questions that you might have at any time here today, or contact us. I'm really keen to move on to hear from this who discuss our strong heritage and perhaps more importantly, the future of services. So I'd like to ask Richard if he can take over now and introduce. As mentioned, it's this afternoon's session is going to focus on the financial services, in particular the role played by new technology and innovation. In a moment, I'll invite those panel to introduce themselves to you. I'll then ask a few questions to get the ball rolling, and then we'll throw things over to the audience. Either there's a roving mic in the room, or we'll take by Slido. So we have an excellent panel with us today. So please do take the opportunity to bring their paces. Got a lot of experience and expertise in a number of things. So please take the opportunity to questions to them. So without further ado, if I could ask the panel to introduce themselves.
John Barman, an ex-year on there, and also Coniston. It's every financial services sector on the island. Matthew Ferris, so I've been director for Bank International, so vice president for Bank Association.
Hi, I'm head of financial at Zurich Integrated Benefits International.
Managing director of Fragrance Products and Island Group. I think I've worked in 5 and 6 sectors.
So, as you mentioned there, quite well, John, you've been sharp in finance. First, and ask you how the island's track record of innovation has helped us to get over.
Certainly. They say if you've been around long enough, then you've seen everything. I remember in 1989, a one-way ticket to Heathrow on Max Airlines was £336. So I was laughing when the guy was arguing about the rates of travel because it's been with us forever. I'm going to come back to what Michael said about maturity of sector right at the end, if you don't mind. But the reason why the Isle of Man financial service sector has grown in the last 50 years is for really, really specific reasons. And they are basically enterprise or entrepreneurs and also resilience. I'll just do a quick 5 steps on it. So the first one was banking, and the opportunity there was very, very low taxes on banks and gross interest. It was as simple as that. But it was an individual that made that choice to establish those product sets on the Isle of Man. We had a few buffers along the way, not least SIB, anyone who remembers in the 1980s. In the 1980s, it was the insurance sector, and two things happened. It was insurance premium taxes, and the second was the opportunity on offshore life bonds, which didn't exist in the UK. And I was happy and privileged to work with the two guys that established the first two companies here. I'm still friends with them today, but that industry has grown into a multi-billion-pound industry, the biggest single employer on the Isle of Man. There's other ones that actually came forward. Funds sector, funds administration. It was good in the 80s, but blossomed in the 90s. Again, it was individual opportunities identified by people, not these things like the exempt fund and the administration. And what Michael said before, we do really, really well sometimes. There's other examples for the fiduciary sector. Basically, it was assisting tax planning, that euphemism. But it's now evolved into both fiduciary services, but really interesting more recently is outsourced professional services by corporates. Again, entrepreneurs started those new businesses and it's grown into a massive multi-million-pound sector by government. When you move on to 2000, we mentioned pension cure-ups, and again, the opportunity from cure-ups was identified and developed here on the Isle of Man. Fund sector as well has grown. The key bit being, and the reason why we've been successful, is an entrepreneur or entrepreneurs take the opportunity to develop. And the second is that you've got resilience and you work with government and the regulators to push forward. I would observe at this time, that peak of that growth line, the next opportunities is to develop the entrepreneurial ideas that are coming forward. We'll probably come back to this later on, like guest Richard, and develop them. Because the life sector, apart from people like Zurich, are in a consolidation stage. The fiduciary services are in a consolidation stage. Not necessarily a bad thing, because you can consolidate and move on from there. But it's really important that we select those next innovations and move the sector on. So, long answer to your question.
Thank you.
Resilience, push on and make ideas.
And going back into you and expanding on John's comments there, with an eye on the future, what do you think of the changes that we can see in the future?
Picking up John's point, thinking about resilience before we came to say, now I think we do have a lot of institutional memory on the moment, and that travels a long way. I think the next stage of that is the regrowth piece, how we take those sectors forward. And a great example, we've just got the new Trusts and Trustees Act through with Royal Assent. I think places like Switzerland, you can have professionals there, you might choose a Jersey or a Guernsey trust law, you want to the Isle of Man trust law because of everything you're getting. I think the other element for me, which really stands out as top left on the green economy, we have enough advantage of being a UNESCO master. And then go back to Jersey and Guernsey, David and they're applying to get to that stage. But that really does hold weight when you're traveling and talking with maybe this is not familiar. There's at the global stage, there's been some really interesting developments over the last 9-12 months. So the new global biodiversity framework that came in Montreal December last year. And this week we have the final ratification of the Task Force for Nature-related management stages. I think there's an opportunity within that for us as an island with all of the professional sectors, really leaders in green space. And yes, you do see some backtracking from a political perspective, occasionally against water, but actually the direction of travel we're seeing overall is really, really positive, and the innovation that we're seeing is really encouraging to see Zurich prime example of people want to go work for Zurich because they can see what they're doing in the direction they're heading in. I think space one last point then would be determined contributions meant to be increasingly ambitious, and I think that's something that we can not really wait and demonstrate where you can get to.
You've just taken that one step forward, Matt. What specific strategies are in play to maintain the success of the finance sector?
Lines as a focus. We see money value the jurisdiction, money balance around sat at the first table here as well. So we did some analysis of money value implications. If that didn't go well, looking at 10% potential significant. So we need to start with that and paying our CFT exception is really important. I think then moving on from there, we've got investment. So you look at the banks, you look at the property side of it, I think we kind of Santander, ourselves, Barclays, HSBC have all invested in property, new property or refurbished property on the high street in London over the last, say, 18 months or so. Take it on from there. Back office, so there's a real customer focus and a customer strategy in back office. I'm sure that there'll be some of the account opening times, easy opening accounts. That's all going to improve with the back office focus journey going forward as well. So there's a number of things happening, but I think they start with compliance and then innovation.
There's obviously a balance that you spoke as in most things between sort of growing the innovation side and maintaining a robust regulatory environment. So Leilish, what do you see as the challenges and opportunities for the island?
Yeah, I'll maybe start with a positive, then lead into some of the maybe challenges that come with that. And people will remember COVID, we were forced into a place where everybody was working from home. And Zurich is an international business. We've got customers all over the world. And these people were being furloughed, they were being laid off. People needed access to their retirement savings because they had nothing to sustain their life anymore. And, writing to us and us coming back and saying, okay, thank you, now go out and find a lawyer, an accountant, an actuary, a director to certify your AML documents and make sure that you've got a printer at home to print off all of these lengthy withdrawal documents and make sure you sign it with a wet signature because we need to verify that. It was just physically impossible to do that. So the regulator here, really receptive to that things had to change. The introduction of EKYC and digital signatures helped move us as an industry onto a digital journey. And on that digital journey, you can start to look at where you've got dead time in the business and where you can start to automate things and make processes start to finish a lot quicker and a lot smoother and better from a customer outcome perspective. But the flip side to that is the industry that we've got and the customers that we're serving are multi-generational. And, Gen Z, they like everything on their phone. They like things to be immediate and there and readily available. But then at the other end of that scale, where you've got the boomers, some people might not have mobile phones, for example. They might not feel comfortable with doing everything through a digital source because they can't trust it and they can't verify it. They like to see people face to face. One of the requirements that we have, in the industry is to ensure good customer outcomes. And when you've got these vulnerable customers and you're trying to force them down a fully digital journey, and they can't do that, and you've got no manual workarounds, you're then not able to meet the customer demand, you're not able to serve customers properly. So, as much as being digital and building things and moving forwards, does help that end-to-end journey, then you've got to remember that, what are you offering? Are you serving the customer effectively?
Thank you. Slide over here. Every high street bank on the island still invests in fossil fuels. How can we get bank trading here, personal business banking that invests ethically? Take that one.
I'd take that first, so we can I won't talk for all banks because all banks have different strategies. Clearly, I think there are some banks that own some rules. We don't invest in new fossil, so we are working with our existing partners to decarbonise and get better. And I think banks play a big part in that financing. So 90% of our emissions are financed emissions. There are examples, I won't name the companies, but we've looked at refinancing on the island and we've put in some pretty challenging elements in those refinance deals to incentivise companies to kind of decarbonise and to get to where they need to get to as well. So I know other banks will take a different view, but that's our view.
Yeah, Chairman of Conister, we've got green schemes for financing cars and battery-based cars, but what Richard Sunak said yesterday, unfortunately, he's quite correct. What's going to happen to all the car batteries in the future? How is those funding, those second-hand vehicle values going to be addressed? There's also the manufacture of the existing petrol and diesel-based. So at Constant, we are very focused on green financing, both from bikes to cars to yellow plants. But we also need to remain cognizant that there's consumer demand and there is a natural infrastructure that has to be in place before we make this change. If we try and force consumers too fast down a certain route, then it's bad for them and it's also bad financially for us as well.
On the investment side, I think a lot of that's around transparency and it's aligning in sustainability preferences, which again I think has evolved in lots of jurisdictions. I think we'll see that coming in here as well. And I think the other challenge is when you're looking at carbon data, there's ways that carbon data can be reported. You can report it on control or an entity basis, so you often find big multinationals will find a way to sort of sign it off somewhere. So I think you really need to dig into and have a look at it properly. And I think where we are with the transition now, to the shared socio-economic pathways, UOM looks at sets out. I think it's a challenge now to try and get 1.5 degrees. I think I don't see it's on that path anymore. But I think the path we've been on has been the middle of the road path. I think what we're drifting to is SSP3, which is the sort of rocky road path, where you see jurisdictions that become more fragmented. I think about their own security, whether it's energy or food security. I think there's a real call for investors and a challenge for investors that actually the way you're investing now is going to help trade happens in 5, 10, 15 years' time. And I think it's so easy to put climate into the important but non-urgent category. And instead of those kind of backing into their own contributions, they need to continue to be ambitious. I think picking up on Aidan's point that you have to cover all the generations, I think there is a transfer of wealth happening. There was a really interesting case in Montana a month or so ago called Gold versus State, where a lot of plaintiffs whose children brought a case against the state, saying that what was happening was sort of detrimental to their future, and the court found favour held. And I think that's having some really interesting ramifications when you look at things like fiduciary duty and how trustees and directors have to take responsibility for the decisions they're making now, not just from a financial perspective, but from a future generations economic perspective and risk perspective. It's such a complicated area, and I think we just get to one of those really interesting bits of the transition.
I do, because this is about the Isle of Man in the first instance. So Rothschilds, many years ago, had an investment strategy that was be on the cutting edge, not the bleeding edge. So the choices that we make in the Isle of Man must follow the international standard. They have to. But I would caution strongly against going beyond that at this stage. You might be able to go and charge your car in Peel and the two down by the creek, but you look into over the number of cars, the charging, the supercharging are going much faster. So let's make sure the infrastructure goes the same speed as any sort of changes that we do in other regulation or legislation or whatever, particularly about financial sector.
Positive to throw in there is what we're doing on biodiversity, which is the other side of the coin, and which often doesn't get attention. And the amount of carbon sequestration you can get in improving our peatlands, there's also good for habitat, all those sorts of things. It's the nature-based solutions, and we're seeing it as the investment manager. There are more investment opportunities in that space now, so there's other ways of addressing and getting the efficiency. There's positive solutions around there that really need funding and support.
Matt?
And I think it's also the biosphere as well. I missed the session before this with Visit Isle of Man, but in terms of the biosphere, it's one of the best kept secrets on the island. There's a really ESG to the biosphere, to tourism, etc. Try and join those dots up for the island. And we are small enough that we can make a big change quite quickly.
Do we have any questions from the floor?
And what how about every man?
John, will start.
You may or may not, Steve, me and a couple of people in the room have been at the forefront of those conversations when I was working with government, and there was a very, Peter, you remember, the threats to the Isle of Man have been going on since the 90s, and starting with the Epic report was the real sort of beating like that. And the really important thing to do, the Isle of Man does really well, and Bettina, who will do the regulation, the regulations with money now, you do the right thing as far as the international relationships go, or you don't roll over either. But we've had many really difficult conversations with the US, with the UK, with the EU. I mean, really threatening conversations. But We found the right solution, and that's why the industry is still here, is that we balanced both our needs and their needs and explained really clearly what we do and what we don't do and put some of the misconceptions correct. And it's the younger generation that's taken over now. And my suggestion would be, don't roll over on stuff. We do and we try to do the right thing, but make sure is that you are doing the right thing and you move at the right pace.
Thank you. Mike set out before some of the initiatives that Finance Ireland have got in play to kind of raise awareness with the island and to drive that new business. Now, obviously, every jurisdiction out there is looking for a place to buy in terms of fintech innovation. So the questions on slide is to all panelists, what's the unique selling point for the island? We got all this done.
Yeah, I think we're becoming more competitive, and I think we do. There's a lot of similarities between all of the international financial centres. I think there is a spirit of innovation, but honestly, I think we already talked about it. Generic advice that no one else has got. We should be pushing that message as far as we can out there in the international community. And I think that's one you need. It gets talked a lot. Michael's talking about it. Bina was talking about it before. When you actually get people to the island, to give them a choice between Monaco, Gibraltar, Jersey, Guernsey, some of the Caribbean islands. Once people come and see it, I think they know to try and come and stay and spend more time on. And then whenever I go away, if I'm in South Alice, like that, seeing plants, I know I'm always so pleased when I get back here. And I think once the clients come here and get a small taste of the island, then those links start to grow. We've got our STEP conference coming up in October. We've got to reinvent that this year, so it's kind of turned into a death by PowerPoint, tea and biscuits, at a CPD. This year we've got 28 international speakers coming across and making it far more vibrant in terms of the way it's being delivered and further reach and engaging with other jurisdictions as well. And I think coming out of COVID, it's reforming those links in different ways for different places and take that, what we have, and showcase it, make sure we are about, as John says, that we don't roll over, that we present ourselves well, and yeah, we've got the industry.
Yeah, I was just going to build and say, you know, the Isle of Man is slowly becoming that centre of excellence. There's problems that the Isle of Man financial services has that's not unique just to the Isle of Man. It's not just an island that does domestic business, but it does international business as well. And you know, the opportunities to come in and solve some of the issues that businesses have is great. You know, there's drawing points to the Isle of Man, like you say, those UNESCO biosphere links. And actually some of the work that FinTech, InsurTech, ALO, IEVA, all of the different initiatives that get run at the moment are all about, you know, providing opportunity for the financial services sector to develop and flourish and grow. And, you know, we're in a position where unemployment is incredibly low. You know, how can roles on the Isle of Man be changed to better suit people and their needs and their development going forwards? The roles that we have today won't exist in 10, 15 years' time. And you know, we're probably at a tipping point where someone can come in and change the whole nature of what the industry looks like as well.
Sure. Well, say the USPs that we have, we've got to stop being so modest. We're a tiny island of 85,000 people, and we've got some world-class businesses here. It's not like I used to be a director of Zurich, so I'm obviously a fan of Zurich. Fantastic base business. We've got people like now, used to be called PokerStars, obviously moved on from there. That their head office was here. We've got some absolutely tremendous companies here. And the thing which I love about it, it's down to individual people, really talented people that sit within these businesses, and they are the drivers. The opportunity that you're describing on Bio as a new hub for the future, I think is absolutely fantastic. But it's grabbing that opportunity straight away. It's not pausing, it's doing with the regulator from a balanced perspective and also with government. It's where we invent USPs as we move forward. So like I said about the 5 steps that we've been through in financial services, nothing stays still. It's about taking the opportunity and being bold enough to go for it. And the Manx people, to my mind, absolutely embody that ability to actually grab that opportunity to move forward. So USP changes, identifying opportunities when they present themselves and doing something about it.
You can, yeah, so one bit, I think it's education. So I was privileged to be on the panel for the Judging Junior Achiever Awards this year, And I don't know if you've seen on LinkedIn and social media, but we had a number of fantastic teams of young people do really well in that challenge. And actually, two of them went on to win European level awards in the fintech space. So, okay, they're not fintechs and payment systems, etc. But if that's going out and profiling the Isle of Man and the education of young people, that is a serious USP that we should invest in and do more of.
Yeah, and so just building on from that point, we had over 1,000 students in yesterday for the youth summit. Just touching on something you mentioned before there about what the finance sector will offer them in terms of a career for those contemplating and taking the first steps. So what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, people ask me about my career in the industry, and my parents were from Zurich. I kind of fell into the industry per se because I hadn't decided what I wanted to do. I'm glad I did. I've been with Zurich now for over 7 years and have such a broad and diverse career that I don't want to leave. Zurich is an incredible place to work. The industry is great and it offers so many opportunities. And touching on the developments that's coming into the industry, we're looking at the use of AI internally and not outsourcing documents per se, but an internal device that helps people process and make decisions a lot faster. So taking out that dead time that I mentioned, allowing people to get better at business acumen and commercial acumen and have that overlay on top of, menial decisions to help serve the customer better. And, it's quite interesting how that can develop. And today you've got people that need to be contact centres, you need people to, withdrawal processes. What I'm seeing is that actually these roles don't exist anymore, but they become a bit more exciting. You need more customer experience people, you need more data architects, you need more IT architects in the business, more skilled professions that I think that young people are interested in. And I think what becomes important in the industry is actually the companies start to mirror and embody the values that younger people are looking for. We were talking before, I had to step into an interview for one of my colleagues, so it was a young girl that came in and she said, okay, Zurich talks a lot of talk, you have these core values, talk to me about optimism, how do you embody optimism in the company? And I thought, oh my goodness, I've never been asked this before in my life. Okay, let's talk about optimism. And, people aren't just looking for the talk, they're looking for you to walk the talk as well. And so as companies and businesses, it becomes really important that you start to really embody these values. Gen Z are so interested in well-being and sustainability. It becomes so important that companies take that seriously and do something about that because people want to have impactful careers, not just for development, but also from a personal perspective.
So it's that great value. You need the education, you get the skills, then you get the innovation. And what we have here with a lot of businesses is if you're ambitious or if the leader sees ambition, you can get on that track to have that to be successful. And I think the other piece you find really interesting is sustainable prosperity. How can you be successful within this world, but still be to meet all those criteria that
And just conscious of the time now, do we have a question? If not, so thank you very much. So, yeah,
Christian, we're very conscious that we get bigger and also the company from the other. And those companies are not owned by non-speaking. With the result that a lot of capital and income that could have stayed on the island actually leaves the island. And with it leaves some of the basic these full creative sort of. I'd be interesting, John, being entrepreneurial and all of those things. How do we solve that?
That's a really fascinating one, that is, because the bank industry wasn't local people, the insurance industry wasn't local people apart from IOM Insurance. The fund sector was on the administration side, the pension side was. It's a natural cause of things as successful if you get swallowed up by large base entities. But an old boss of mine had a really good strategy, I've said it to people government. He used to say you buy 50 train platform tickets at a time, some leave the station, some don't. So hopefully be able to grow those seeds and grow those seeds of new businesses and bring those entrepreneurs through. Because that is the growth bed of the future. It's a natural course of things that people grow up and mature and fade away. And that's what we're seeing quite a bit, maturity, I should say, in financial services sector. But the emphasis on maintaining those jobs is really important. But the growth of the entrepreneurs and the new opportunities, and there is loads. I saw so many through InsurTech that these people can come through. So focus on those, and that income that you're describing and that GNP will start growing again like it always has done. It goes through the cycle.
Interesting point. We're almost second, third gen financial services, and my family moved over. It's my dad got a job here. I would have gone up and done something different, but ended up coming into financial services. Loved it, and then I think we're now seeing the next generation coming through too. I think town will attract extra talent to come back to the island. We'll do more with the island, and I think to get there, we just have to build stronger links with other jurisdictions. And the UK has been the dominant force for the right reasons. It now only represents 3% of the global equity markets. So actually, the world really is our mission. And you can, whether you a Brexit or a Arena, it doesn't really matter. We are where we are, and we present ourselves how we want to evolve, really. And I think that's a great opportunity for us.
Just conscious of time, if anybody wants to just make a bit of contribution.
Yeah, I think something that really want to add is collaboration across sectors as well. I think in terms of challenge, this is what we can do between the different sectors.
Right, thank you very much. The panellists will be around afterwards if we didn't get to any questions, so we'll be able to just have a chat with them here. And now I'd just like to invite Cyril onto the stage to wrap up.
So firstly, huge thanks to the panellists for their insightful and very passionate contribution. Loved it. And importantly for keeping you up and being very generous with your time. I know we asked a lot of you and you have participated in a number of our different working parties and working groups. So again, thank you again for your contribution. As Michael said at the beginning of the session, financial and professional services contributes about 48% of GDP, so it's vital that the sector is maintained, but also that we continue to evolve and grow and change. Now, a few key things I was hearing coming through consistently from the panellists. A big emphasis on being entrepreneurial, attracting entrepreneurial, being resilient, shouting out, being bold, celebrate success, and importantly collaborate between industry, regulators, and other jurisdictions that we can learn from. It was interesting to also hear from Eilish when she mentioned about how adversity sometimes brings change through COVID and the importance again of customer service. We are a customer service driven industry and sector. We sometimes forget and we get very involved with AI, IT, innovation, with electronic stuff and IT. I'm crap on that, so apologies for my phraseology. So it's great to see that we still understand the importance of that good customer outcome, and that's something we really have to remember, because of some of the USPs that you were mentioning there, one of the things that I always find in the island when I've worked with jurisdictions is the openness and the ability to be able to reach out to other businesses, the regulator, the government, and to work with them. And it's the people that make that happen. We're always hungrier to see growth or change or talent, because sometimes we're seen as a bit of a poor relation when you talk about the Channel Islands or other jurisdictions. So again, coming back to what John was saying, be bold. Do shout out about our successes, but also balance that with making sure that we put our money where our mouth is as well. Don't just talk about it, let's get it over with, let's get it done. Again, Greg, I've been to a number of your presentations, love it, very passionate about ESG. That was coming across from everybody, and it's something obviously that we all have to take personal responsibility, and our businesses also have to take personal responsibility to make a contribution to that as well. So that's a great message to come through. So I want to know your next presentation as well. Okay. So just to finish off, conscious of time, again, thank you, that was great. A lot of questions, a lot of insightful thoughts and things that we need to think about. It just gives us a bit of a kick sometimes to remember that we do have to put our actions into place, not just talk about them. So I'll leave you on, we do as an island, using John's phrase, obviously backbone you mentioned, we don't want to be in the cutting edge, we want to be in the cutting edge, we don't want to be in the bleeding edge. I love that, could use that one again. So thank you, again, thank you, and thank you for everyone for participating as well.